Doobs does YouTube. It's been a while. Been a rough month or so, just busy and some health stuff that made it difficult to be on the computer. But I'm back and I'm trying something new. This is post-game commentary, going through it. I realized with some of my earlier videos that the more difficult the games got, the worse the commentary got because I was focusing on the game, and the worse my playing got because I was also focusing on the commentary. And so felt like it wasn't quite my best playing, and I wasn't really saying things that were of much use or insight. So I'm back trying this post-game commentary. We'll see how that goes. Here I am playing Kecho from the Discord, and he is playing Empire. We've played, I think, once before, so it's always a tough challenge, especially playing the Empire when you're not very familiar with their play style, how aggressive they're going to be, what to expect from them as far as are they going to give you units? Do they go for a lot of captures? Are they going to start drawing probes as soon as you have more than 11 units in your base? Things like that are sort of hard to predict. Um, so it'll be an interesting situation, kind of feeling that out off the top. But he's a strong player. I've observed him play a couple of times, and we have an interesting map here. We have the no Seleucami with Moncal, so he chose rote setup with Dagobah, a wise choice, potentially. Now he's also playing with the rote deck for Empire, and one thing about the rote deck is it's tough to get production. You're missing the loyalty missions, the trade negotiation, the display of power. You're missing address delays, which is a resolve to get units in an Imperial system, and those really quick kind of catch-up cards. And because it's rote, Corellia is really, really at risk. A lot. I find myself a lot during rote setup games deploying initially in Cato, because then Corellia is really subject to an attack from Cato. So he's setting up his forces right now. He's doing what you sort of have to do with rote setup, which is he's consolidating into three fleets. Always wise to start in Coruscant. Mandalore makes sense because he's got to rush to Moncal so that I don't get two builds there. And again, because he's using the rote deck, there are fewer ways to take Moncal because trade negotiations is replaced with deployment, and you can't use deployment in a rebel system. So he couldn't deploy to Moncal. So he's got to scoot up there. And now looking at this board, I'm expecting a Star Destroyer heading toward Utapau. I'm expecting Star Destroyer to head up toward Moncal. And I'm guessing that the Star Destroyer in Coruscant is going to head out toward Dantooine. So thinking about base choices, I'm just trying to figure out, okay, based on where I imagine he's going to move, where will his troops be landing last? I imagine the Star Destroyer from Dagobah is going to head up toward Ryloth. The Star Destroyer in Mandalore is going to head toward Moncal. And so I'm thinking that what might be a good pick here is Rhodia, and that eventually the Star Destroyer that goes up to Seleucami is going to head toward Bothawi, and the Star Destroyer that heads up toward Ryloth is going to go to Tatooine. So I think it'll be a long time before he needs to land on Rhodia. Of course, I didn't really consider the fact that the best way for him to get to Bothawi is from Naboo to Rhodia to Bothawi. So we'll have to deal with that coming up. That's the tough part about doing this post-game commentary is I'm trying not to give away spoilers for what happened. Now, here's an interesting spot. I really want him to take a Mahdi here, and he kind of makes the right choice, I think, not only because he has the rote deck so he can get recruit cards, but not giving me the last action. Because if I get the last action, I can for sure probably get Ord, maybe even Utapau, maybe even Corellia by taking out Corellia from Kato. And so he makes the right choice. He passes on Mahdi, and I am now choosing my base. I end up going with Rhodia. It's also a base where I know because Kecho hasn't played me a lot, I like a Rhodia base. I'll choose a Rhodia base in this situation. And so usually that can catch Imperial players off guard if they haven't encountered that a lot. It's just a very, I mean, you Imperial players, I think, are used to having Rhodia. And it's a very unappetizing system to land on because you just don't get much production for it. And it's usually not something that you're worried about stopping the Rebel player from getting. So here's the Rhodia pick, the initial deployment in Kato, and really, really good mission turn one. I love to see promotion to get the early leader. And I often, depending on what other missions you have, that might determine what you want. But I usually go for Saw because getting the three fists is really good. Just for blocking captures. The logistics is always good. The ground battle's good. And you just run into fewer chances of not being able to pick Saw because of his action card. Because there's only one way to recruit Saul through the action cards. Whereas, say you get Akbar, and then you're offered it's a trap versus like noble sacrifice or Jin's uh, get a objective card after winning a combat. You know those cards you don't want to pass up on Akbar for, and so that situation doesn't really arrive with Saul because you can always take under the radar with Cassian. So I open up with an infiltrate here again because I don't know his play style. I am I don't know. I've played Imperial players who will block my infiltrate turn one. So I put it in a spot where he has to move. And also, if Tarkin happens to be on Fear will keep them in line, I don't want him to just be able to play it in Dagobah and get Utapau for free. So I'm sort of setting up kind of a dual purpose doing it there. I'm not really worried about Tarkin on Rule by Fear because I have Leia back to block. I've infiltrated into Crippling Blow. I feel good about that. And I have support of the Huts up, which is part of the reason why I chose the rote deck myself, because I'm just one mission away from getting support of the Huts with regional aid or with contingency plan. It just increases my chances of getting an easy score on that. Here comes the Saw with the promotion. And unfortunately, seeing crippling blow leads to an error on my part because I'm immediately thinking, how can I score crippling blow with my initial deployment? And so I get a little excited here, and so I attack with Leia into Corellia, and instead of retreating, canceling his card and retreating to Cato, which is probably what I should do, I stay because I'm not thinking that he'll just all out attack Corellia um, and take it back. So I'm not going to get a chance to open up next turn with that force to score crippling blow. So he blows up a trooper, a little risky. He should probably expect me to retreat, and he goes through, unfortunately, my blocking a black hit with a crit. And now I'm in a position where uh, I'm never going to score crippling blow with that force. And of course he's going to attack me because he doesn't want me to build loyalty on Corellia. Now, maybe he wouldn't know this. In my mind, I'd rather have Ort than Corellia because two Moncows is nice, but it's way better, in my opinion, to get one Moncow, a Nebulon, and a Speeder. Um, it's just much more powerful. And I've enticed him enough to bring the entire force from Coruscant because he wants to get the capture. And he knows with my transport card, um, I'm going to be able to block a red and a direct. And so, of course, he's going to bring the whole force, although this ends up being a little tricky for him because now what's going to cover Ord? You can see because he didn't move to Ord, now he is not going to get an assault carrier turn one. So I think what actually might be good here, and he gets the capture, he succeeds. Again, this is just a blunder by me. I should have done escape plan last turn and brought Leia back to Cato and forced him to just move by leaving the troopers behind. Um, but what I think he should do here is put definitely don't use that card. If anything, he can use bombardment to do 2 black damage. But he doesn't need to use these good combat cards on this insignificant combat. But what he should do is put all this damage on one trooper, and I think he should retreat to Coruscant just to get back closer to Ord, because with his needing to move to Mandalore Force to Seleucami, it would be helpful to have those units back toward Ord. Ord now is just, I'm going to build alliance. I think I build alliance in Ord. I should. No, I do Toydaria. I should do Ord. Okay. I consider Toydaria because I have support of the Hutts, but let's be real. Oh, I changed it last minute. Okay, so this is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm thinking. The I see that single assault carrier in Kashyyyk, and I'm going to be building a Y-wing, and I can put it on Toydaria. And just like I said, there you go. Under the radar, you get Cassian, no problem. I have Cassian now for the rescue on Leia, and Cassian is great with behind enemy lines. And so it just worked out perfectly to get Saul with promotion. So what I'm thinking here, I went Toydaria not only because I have support of the Hutts, but his fleet is super thin in the entire left side of the board now. He moved all of his Coruscant fleet over to Corellia. The Death Star is on Dagobah. A Star Destroyer is on Dagobah. And you have this one lonely assault carrier that's somehow supposed to get to Bothawi. And so without that assault carrier moving to Toydaria, I'm going to get another build on Bothawi. And so that's the plan. The plan is to take out this assault carrier in Kashyyyk and put him in a really tough spot where if he doesn't, I don't know what he could do. He would have to get planetary and message from high command in order to deal with this Nalhutta region. And of course, now I can build alliance in Nalhutta this turn or Kessel and score an easy point there. All right, let's look at what we get with under the radar. Ryloth, Kashyyyk, Alderaan, and Cato. And Ryloth is exactly what I want to see here. Alderaan, I don't want him to get, so I should put Alderaan on the bottom. And the reason is because or Alderaan I do want him to get. I don't want him to get Cato. So I should put Cato on the bottom because I want him to be more incentivized to move to Cato, because if he moves to Cato, that means he's not moving toward Ord. And then I'll be able to get builds off in Ord in upcoming turns. And again, this is the problem. It's a combination. It's a combination of um, the Empire rote deck not being able to cover loyalty as well, and the rote setup spreading out your fleet to um, not be able to cover these cases, these edge cases super well. And so I kind of make a mistake. I put Alderaan on the bottom. Shouldn't be too big of a deal. And I take Ryloth for a couple of reasons. I don't want him to ever draw Ryloth because I want his forces to move there. Because if they're moving toward Ryloth, then they've probably passed Rhodia without consequence. And also, Ryloth is going to get landed on, and then he's going to move from there. And I know he's going to move from there because the base is in Rhodia. And so once he lands on Ryloth and checks it, he's going to have to move back toward Rhodia to check it. And when he does that, maybe he leaves a trooper, maybe he leaves a TIE fighter, and then I can plan the assault. I can behind enemy lines to free Ryloth and possibly move there if I'm being threatened by the Death Star in Naboo or threatened by a big force around there. Then I can always make an easy move to Ryloth should I get pressured. So right here, this is a critical juncture. I'm looking at his missions, and Jabba on a captured leader is pretty scary. So this early, because it could be an Intero droid. And so he can't just run Intero droid. So I know I have a turn, or an action, I should say. So I can open up with this attack, which again is the whole reason I got Toydaria, is to cripple his exploration in the Hutt region. And if he just opens up with Intero droid, Leia probably blocks it herself. So if he does want to do something like that, he's going to have to move with Leia, probably with Vader, and then I can always infiltrate on Vader. I can throw out a wasted sabotage on Vader, something like that, in order to potentially block. So I'm free to open up with the attack, and now all of these troops are just going to be trapped on Kashyyyk for hopefully the rest of the game. Maybe I might even throw the Sabo down there. Oh, and deployment rightfully does that on Nal Hutta. It's the best place he can do it. But he, again, because he didn't get that assault carrier turn one, he doesn't have anything to deploy there. So here we go for the rescue. He has nobody good back to block. Um, and I'm kind of okay if he does block. You know, there's a chance he has It Is Your Destiny with Vader. And if he does that, he puts himself in a really bad spot for covering Ord and Mon Cal. So all of these are acceptable risks, and it's really playing out exactly how I wanted. And yep, there's the move to Seleucami. That's necessary, and it's looking like I'm going to get Bothawi and Toydaria for a second time. Um, I assume Vader is on Rule by Fear. Just makes sense. It's a good thing to run. Probably run it in Utapau. And this, I'm just going to try to wait out Vader a little bit, and Mothma will be going to build alliance in Kessel. Drop the infiltrate and Utapau because I expect that's where he wants to rule by fear. And I gain regional support. And I'm already thinking, hey, I'm about to have three. Oh, let's gather intel. Okay. So he's drawing two. I'm fine with that. I already have a good probe under the radar. And I know that he is now getting Kecho and whatever that other inconsequential probe was. Throughout the sabotage here. So what I was saying was with the regional support, um, I'm going to have three loyalty and Kessel, and so I can play around Nal Hutta next turn in order to get loyalty there and ensure myself regional right on the back of support of the Hutt. Just going to drop this down on Kashyyyk. I don't want him putting an assault carrier there and freeing those units. I don't know if he might try to block it with Vader, and so that seems like the safest bet. And here I get a little nervous because I assumed he would be taking that Star Destroyer down to Mustafar or Sullust to cover Bespin. And now all of a sudden I've got a Star Destroyer right outside my base, and I have this weak mamby-pamby ROTE setup fleet in my base with, missing an X-Wing and a Y-Wing. So my plan immediately begins to form of, okay, that means Naboo has to be the target for crippling blow next turn. But let's see where Vader moves. Vader is going toward Geo. I don't love it. The sooner he moves to Geo, the sooner he checks Ryloth. The sooner he checks Ryloth, the sooner he doubles back to Rhodia. And so I kind of wanted him to I mean, he's giving me Bespin. Unbeknownst to him, I don't really want Bespin. I want Ord, and that's perfect. I get the trade relations, I get the subversion, I get Lando. Always taking Lando here. Such a good card. And don't want Luke getting Lord. And because we're doing road setup with him and Dagobah, even if I were to get Yoda with Luke, it's just he's an immediate target for a capture. So I have two really good objectives. I'm on the board early, and my plan here is just score one or two objectives every turn. I've noticed with rote deck as rebels, you really have to score fast because you can't generate units, and because you can only score combat objectives attacking out of the base, your force gets whittled down so quickly compared to base deck. With base deck, you get units from a public uprising, you get units from incite rebellion, and all of these combat objectives that you really want to be scoring just come so much easier in base deck, and you can really prolong the game. As long as you have one unit alive in the base, you can score combat objectives with these good missions. And so I'm not happy to see the striker go down in Naboo. Um, I'm plopping. I'm not. I'm not playing Dodonna yet. Dodonna's card. I usually hold off on Dodonna playing Rebel Planning, his action card, until I can get stolen plans off so that I know what's coming up, or at least until I'm in the level twos, because there's only one bad level two really. Um, Sometimes Rebel Cell can be a bad pick if you get it unknowingly, but also um, I don't. There's more that I don't want. I don't want raid outposts necessarily because I don't have hidden fleets. Um, And so I'm just holding off with Dodonna until I can just find a better spot. Oh, got to open up here with the behind enemy lines to score crippling blow because I don't want him landing on Rhodia. And you can bet that that Star Destroyer is heading right toward Rhodia. Um, I don't expect him to bring a leader. I'm sort of second guessing here. Not sure which is more valuable. If the thing is, the way that I get the most ground is with the Corvette and the U-Wing. Because even though the Nebulon carries more, I can generate a trooper with the U-Wing card, which is what I'm going to do. Um, I would imagine that he's probably. I don't think he should do this. Remember, I'm already a leader up because I have promotion. And so if he gives me too much of an action advantage, then I can really cause some pain. If I have contingency, yeah, he doesn't need to do this here. These troopers are goners, regardless. And now he's kind of putting himself in a position where Piet could even get killed. I expect him to use his TIE striker card. What he might not know is I want troopers. I don't want the Vanguard. The troopers are better here because I can heal. And so he blows up the Vanguard, and I'm happy with that. I'd gladly trade a trooper. Um, Saul just rolls out of his mind. I'm sort of like, should I just go for the Star Destroyer? But I kind of expect to get wiped here. I want to take out the Striker as well because I don't want him blocking my combat card. The Yeah, so 2 damage on the Striker, 1 on the fighter. And of course he wipes me. He doesn't need to, I mean, what are the chances he rolls 2 black heals? If he leaves something alive, doesn't really do him much good. Um, so now what I do is I'm going to use, so my plan here is I'm going to blow up a trooper. I don't want to blow up the tank because I have 3 black dice with 3 rerolls. So on 6 dice, I figure I'm going to get a crit. And if I get a crit, he can't heal it because he rolls no red dice. But if I blow up the tank, all of a sudden, any black with him having two blacks and one reroll, it's a pretty good chance he could get a heal. And so I really need to blow up this trooper just to diminish his black dice and reduce the chance that he can get a heal. Because all I need is, yeah, is one crit, and there it is. And now that tank is for sure dead. So I can do 2 damage to the trooper, that can't heal, and 1 damage to the tank, and that can't heal. And now I scored crippling blow, and I prevented him from discovering my base. So I've also emptied out my base a little bit to make his gather intels less effective, and it's clear that he's going to be aggressively running gather intel, which, you know, it's good versus rote rebels to run gather intels a lot because I have no plant false leads, and any probe that you draw is a probe that I'm never going to get back. But at the same time, in these early stages, you just really want to be getting in position. Like if his gather intel last turn was instead the Emperor moving to Alderaan, then it would save him a lot of pain. So the plan here is that was a rapid in case this whole Naboo thing went poorly or all of a sudden the Geo Force went to Rhodia. I just needed to have this rapid as a backup because again, my base is super weak thanks to thanks to the road setup. He moves to Moncal, smart move. I think he should probably make that move with Piet. Um, the Emperor is just better to block things. And he's going to be very sad here to see what Mothma does because she's going for Ord. And, you know, there's a chance that Jabba's on Imperial propaganda. I'm okay if he plays it in Megiddo. I just don't want him playing it in Nal Hutta. But that's why Leia is on the subversion. Her sole purpose is to block propaganda if that comes up. And then if Jabba's on Gather Intel instead, then I'll let him go for that. It's one probe, and then I can block what I presume to be a capture that Vader is on. What I'm doing right now is trying to put myself in a position where I don't give away regional, that I'm going for regional too clearly. And if Jabba is on Subvert, if he decides to do like a random block with Piet on Dodonna's build alliance, I just want to get a little bit more diplomacy in Nal Hutta because that's where Dodonna's going to go. And he goes to block the sabotage. I don't like this play from him. Um, and Riken just wrecks shop. I'm not really sure why he did that. Maybe to set up for a capture, but he should know that somebody's going to be on. Somebody's going to be on. Yeah, and Dodonna goes to Nal Hutta a little bit. Don't want to roll 2 blanks, but it's just the best. Just the best move. Somebody's going to be on infiltrate, and because somebody's going to be on infiltrate, he's going to get a pretty good opportunity to capture anyway. I don't think he needs that extra die there. It's possible that he just wants to put the assault carrier there, but if he was really worried about that, he could just take a detour from Ryloth and move the assault carrier toward Rhodia or Tatooine instead of trying to block with Piet. It accomplishes the same thing, but it's a guarantee. And Leia comes in the clutch with the subvert. She blocks the capture. I didn't use her to block Jabba because now my thought process has shifted where, okay, you know what? I wouldn't mind a second Mon Cal, and I really don't want him to get a Star Destroyer. So I'm thinking now I'm probably going to trade relations in Utapau and infiltrate here. We'll see what we get. I put Cassian with Saul just in case he's doing something cheeky with the detain. And here's the Death Star plans in the raid outpost. Now I have Recon for raid outpost, but that's 1 point. And I have this second behind enemy lines, and behind enemy lines just makes the Death Star a juicy, juicy target. I got the Nebulon in the base, I can drop a couple fighters in the base, and as soon as that Death Star lands on a subjugated system, I can blow it up. What do we roll? Oh, he did do detain, okay. And he gets it, and that's fine. Again, detain is a really good mission, but you kind of want to use it to lock down the rebel fleet, like when you discover the base, if you don't want them to attack out. It's a bit early in the game to run a detain. That could be an R&D for him to get some projects up, to get some more production, get a construct factory or a super or a interdictor, anything like that, I think would be better than detaining, especially since, again, I'm up a leader. So you detain one of my leaders, that's fine. I'm at what I normally would be. And yeah, I go for Utapau here. Get the second Mon Cal and deny him a Star Destroyer. I think that's a little bit better than me getting a Nebulon and a Corvette and two speeders, especially with the Death Star still being so close. That's kind of turning into my main focus. The speeders might not help if he just ends up blowing up Rhodia with the Death Star. Dathomir, Bespin, Nalhutta, Geo, not the greatest. It's good to see Dathomir, but again, he rightfully deployed on Nalhutta, and he's already on Geo. Probably thinks I'm not on Bespin, and they get the regional score. So I'm doing a good job scoring objectives as they come up. Plant explosives. Um, I always say if you're, I don't always say, but I'm starting to think, and I will now say on this video that if you're hoping to defend the base by playing plant explosives, you're usually going to be disappointed. There's going to be an Ozzel situation. You're going to you're going to put Chewie and Maydeen on plant explosives, and you're going to roll a 2 and take out a single ATST. Seems like it never really works out the way that you want it to. So this is an interesting situation. He's got Krennic's, uh, Director Krennic's immediate where he looks at my objectives. And now I've seen Death Star plans, I've seen raid outposts. There's always a chance that there's time for peace. Now, if I don't know his thought process, but I would think as the Empire is if I saw something like time for peace, which is a bad level 2 objective, I would put the other two level 2s, say it's popular support and liberation, I would put those together, assuming that the rebel player is going to infiltrate. So then you have two good objectives, and they have to send one to the bottom, and then they're faced with the time for peace under that. And so, knowing that that would be my motivation, I'm thinking this might be a good time to use Dodonna's card to just draw whatever he put on top. Of course, he's going to know what that is and be able to play around it, but sometimes there's nothing he can do about it. I put these little guys here in Kessel. Again, his space is so weak. He is building, he had one assault carrier from turn 1 Utapau, and he's going to have another assault carrier from Utapau on space 3. And so I'm thinking as long as this Death Star doesn't come my way, I can really dominate the space. That was a big part of my motivation with taking Utapau instead of Ord with trade relations. And now with Churrit, I'm thinking Churrit with Baze's loyalty. I don't really have any combat objectives at the moment that he needs to score, but I see that assault carrier go down in Seleucami, and I'm thinking that is pretty appetizing. I can go and blow up that assault carrier, and now he's going to be even farther away from getting to Toydaria, checking Kessel, covering Both, and I am just building tons off of that hut region. Death Star's still on Dagobah. I get one more recruit, so it might be nice to wait for a chance to get 1 in a million before going for the Death Star. And here comes Dodana. See what we get. Okay, no man left behind. Riken is detained, and I start thinking here, okay, so if I use Chirrut and Base's loyalty to take out this assault carrier, if I blockade Seleucami, I can just run my missions there. I can run my infiltrate there, and I have Chirrut there to block. That's not really a smart decision. I assume that he wants to, I know he needs to check Dathomir. I know he probably needs to check Yavin. Um, Chances are pretty limited that he's drawn Yavin already. Might need to check Felucia. So I'm thinking he probably doesn't want to bring that Star Destroyer back toward Seleucami. And so I'm thinking I'll just blockade it with this U-Wing. But then, I don't know, I kind of have a brain fart here coming up. Ultimately, down the road, the plan is to drop this X-Wing in the base and to start doing some stuff to defend against this Death Star. It's the only thing I'm worried about right now is the Death Star. I think everything else I have a pretty good handle on. Just because he hasn't been able to get much production at all. I don't think he's run any R&Ds. He did turn one. I think turn one he ran an R&D. Haven't seen that project yet. Got Vader. Vader, I assume, is on a capture so I'm just going to bring the U-Wing, leave the trooper behind in Kessel. Um, but then I changed my mind because I'm thinking, oh, I can retreat. Um, I can maybe force out a good combat card from him and give myself an opportunity to retreat by having a ground battle. And then for some reason, I just don't. And I've just played a game recently as Empire where I did a move similar to what he does, and so I should have been on the lookout for it, but for some reason I'm just not paying attention. Jared's going to give me a crit because he's a G. And then I just chill in Seleucami, even though the whole reason I brought the trooper was to retreat. I think I really just figured he was gonna see this as me trying to draw him away from Yavin and Dathomir. Remember, Dathomir, other than Ryloth, is the only probe I really know of. And then here comes Tag, and maybe you can guess what's coming. But Tag has a little action card called More Dangerous, and that's exactly what it is. And so he's able to get his capture card back. And I'm kind of kicking myself because the plan was to retreat. And he gets his space back. We find his cards, and they're hiding one under the other. So yeah, so now I can't block black hits. I've used my transport card, and so now I'm a little bit frustrated with myself because my objective is to let no one get captured, and he is not going to let that happen. It's a good play by him. It's he used overwhelming presence to try and save his assault carrier on Kashyyyk. And that's a really good card that you want when I inevitably come for a Star Destroyer. And Chirrut gets himself in a whole world of hurt. And now I'm not going to be able to score this objective, at least on this turn. And the thing, too, that you have to remember with ROTE Rebels is you also have one fewer rescue because you no longer get the daring rescues, and the rescues that you do get in general are harder to pull off because the critical rescue is is 3 blue. And so now that doesn't matter because I've already got Cassian, but it is harder to rescue your leaders with ROTE Rebels. And so you really want to watch out for that. Now he kind of makes a mistake here, and he flashes that he has secure the plans. And he's looking to put that down on Dagobah. Now, he might be looking to put it on Dagobah because he's not used to playing ROTE Rebels. And versus ROTE Rebels, when you put down target markers, you want those in empty remotes. Because again, I have no hidden fleets, and usually the only way I can get those remotes, those target markers off of remotes, is with lead the strike team, is with off a covered remote, is with lead the strike team and heist, and I can't heist if he has no units. So he maybe should be thinking about doing it in an empty remote anyway. Um, so because he realizes he needs to move the Star toward Endor, I'm able to infiltrate in Dagobah, and now the only remote where he has a presence, he's not able to run it there because I have a good chance of blocking it with Leia and with Cassian. Now, I'm a little bit worried here. I don't want him moving to Rhodia and building alliance with that lone Star Destroyer. And so I'm going to let this gather intel go through because I'm thinking I might need to block a rule by fear in Rhodia. I'm sure he wants to get some ground in Rhodia and in order to cover Bothawi. Sabo on Utapau, it's a good spot. He has a lot of troopers there. And now he's wondering, where can I secure the plan? He probably wants to, again, he should be leaving Emperor back. He should be leaving the Emperor back. I mean, he knows Mothma's on a mission. That could be something that the Emperor could block if he's not sure about where his next move is. But the flexibility of having the Emperor back is better than having Piet back. And here's the move to Ryloth that I expect. Now I'm going to, he has one move left, and I want him moving toward Ord because I don't want him moving this Star Destroyer toward Rhodia. And so I'm thinking, okay, this is going to get him to move to Alderaan, but he surprises me. I see what he's doing. He, okay, yeah. So he has to put this in an unprotected remote, which I am pushing him to do. Normally, I would let him do it in Dagobah because it just increases my chances of being able to get it with Heist. But I have Riken, and to all the people out there that hate on Start the Evacuation, it helps so much in the road deck. And it helps in the base deck as well if you're able to get to raid outposts. But Riken's card has a lot of good uses. It can be comboed with a lot of other action cards, like Nadine, different things like that. And I am not worried about this invincible Death Star because I have Riken in the back pocket. And so now, because he did the move to Ryloth with the Emperor, he's making this move to Rhodia to rule by fear with Piet. And now we're running 2 versus 2. I know that Vader's not on capture because he went to great lengths to capture Turret. And so if he would not have bothered, I don't think, to go to those great lengths unless, yeah, and he didn't even bother going for Rhodia here. For some reason, I seem to remember. Oh my gosh, Leia. Woo! So here I'm looking at, there's only 13 probes left, so he's getting through the probe deck pretty quickly. Good on him. And yeah, I've been definitely rolling. I'm better. It's a little frustrating. I see Ilum, oh, and Tatooine. So now I know those troops from Ryloth are going to Tatooine next turn, and he's got to start getting some presence on the Ilum side if he doesn't have Ilum, because that's looking pretty suspicious as well. Really happy with that rapid. We'll see what this last recruit is. Heist. Heist is okay. And there we go. 1 in a million. So now he has no shield bunkers. It's funny. One thing I get Luke here. Oh, because I have Seek Yoda. The See, this is interesting right here. During the game, I didn't think about this at all, and probably because I haven't actually been playing ROTE Rebels that much. I've been playing mainly base lately. But the greatest wombo combo on the planet to catch. Oh, I know what I'm thinking. I know what's going on. So I can't go for the Death Star. I was kind of kicking myself because with 1 in a million, the great combo that I like to do is you put Mothma on behind enemy lines when there's a Death Star on a subjugated system, and you keep Luke in the pool. So what you can do is it doesn't look like anything suspicious is happening necessarily. And then when Mothma shows up with behind enemy lines because she doesn't have tactic values, you can send Luke from the pool, bring your space and blow up the Death Star. But I forgot during this commentary that he has the Death Star is invincible right now. That I have to go get it with start the evacuation. And so I'm a little bit worried with one Nebulon and two fighters that I won't be able to take out the Death Star. And I don't really want to send my Moncal all the way to Hoth, leaving just two Nebulons behind, uh, knowing that he very well could just rule by fear in Rhodia, reveal the base, knowing that he's got a pretty decent chance of doing some damage. So he's got Ozzel. Um, that's always something you want to be mindful of, especially as games get later. You really have to train yourself. This game requires, there's so many moving parts, and the more leaders you add, that means the more action cards you have. And the later it goes into the game, that means the more objectives you have to consider as Empire and as Rebels. As the game gets down to the wire and you're running out of resources, you have to be really mindful of what missions can the Empire run that ruin my day. So right now I have a captured leader, so I'm thinking about We Are the Bait. I'm thinking about Retrieve the Plans. And so I have Saw on behind enemy lines. I don't think that's a good play. I have Luke on Seek Yoda, which I think is appropriate. I don't know what Saw is doing. Oh, I have Liberation. Okay, so I'm thinking of scoring Liberation. It's a build turn, so doing it in Moncal could be good. Um, but again, I don't want to lose a Nebulon or a Moncal, so I don't think that's a great play. I don't have a transport. I don't have a U-wing, something that I don't mind sending across the map. Now, I also have seen Nalhutta in Rapids, so it's always possible to free up Nalhutta just to have a good place to move at the end. And he's got some scary leaders on missions. There could be a We Are the Bait. There could be a Retrieve the Plans. There could be Intero Droid. So lots to think about. I figure that Ryloth mess is going to go toward Tatooine. I figure he probably wants to cover Bothawi with the Rhodia Star Destroyer so that I don't get any more speeders. But I'm sort of already at critical mass with four speeders. That's all it takes is a base defenses, and that becomes pretty brutal to deal with. I don't need to infiltrate. I don't need to wrap it anymore because there's 11 probes left, And the bottom eight have some good ones in there. Dathomir's in there, Ilum's in there, Tatooine's in there, and so I'll just leave those at the bottom. Waiting for him to get set here. Now, it's the path to victory here feels like, just based on what I know so far, that I'm probably going to need to go for the Death Star. So in my mind, I'm thinking might need to end up ruling by building alliance in Bespin to get him to move the Death Star to Bespin. Open up with the infiltrated Rhodia just in case he tries to rule by fear there. And normally I would take establish outpost because I have Death Star plans, but I'm thinking Vader might be on retrieve the plans, and he is. And so I keep the level 3 Death Star plans on top, knowing that if he looks at my objectives, he's probably here going to take the Death Star plans. Probably not going to take Leave No Man Behind because Chirrut has very much been left behind. Liberation he could take, but yeah. So I feel very glad at that point that I saved the level 3. And as soon as the Death Star plans is out of my hand, it's coming right back with a heist. Mhm. So the Death Star looks ready to fall. I'm going to have Jedi Luke. Um, I don't think he's built any shield bunkers so far. He's playing a little bit loose with the Death Star. Um, he doesn't, now that Secure the Plans has been picked up, maybe he'll start building some more shield bunkers. Uh, Vader revealed his mission, so I know it's safe to send out Luke. Don't think he's going to get captured by Tag. And I'm kind of thinking with Saw on behind enemy lines, I want to save that for the Death Star, but also if he does a weak move with, say, Ozzel onto a subjugated system, I wouldn't mind killing Ozzel as well as scoring Liberation. That would kind of make it worth it for me to take out Ozzel, maybe even to take out Piet. He does a good move here. It's unfortunate that he doesn't have any ground in the Hut region, but he's taking advantage of that to stack his blues, making it so that he can draw more probes. And but unfortunate because he's let that force sit in Coruscant, in Corellia since turn one. It's looking like I'm going to get Ord, um, and you do not want the rebels getting Ord. It's just the ship and the speeder are, especially when I already have 4 speeders. It's just super powerful. Every ship, especially with the rebels, as I was saying earlier, that's how I score objectives, is with units in the base, and denying those units is super vital. Um, Looking at this map, where do I want to build loyalty? He's moved off of Rhodia, and even if I wasn't in Rhodia, it's kind of a good spot to do it. He always could be on his second deploy. I don't want him deploying in Rhodia to reveal it. And it's the only spot he can't move to other than Felucia. And so I think it makes sense. Even if I wasn't in Rhodia, I would probably build Alliance there. The other option is to build Alliance in Bespin uh, in order to prevent him from moving to Hoth, to keep my units alive there. But what I'm trying to do is My thought is I want to sabotage in Mustafar so that he can't put a bunker there, but I'm also trying to get him to move to Bespin because if he moves to Bespin, I keep my units alive and he's not on a remote because I would fully expect him to move to Hoth this turn to take out my units. And then once he's on Hoth, I can't use behind enemy lines. Um, he leaves two ties behind. You know, I've seen this a lot. He left two ties behind on Geo, which he had to, I think, because of um, the assault carrier's carrying capacity, but leave a trooper behind. Um, leave a trooper behind so that you're building more units. He already is weak on space. Um, now in Mustafar, I don't know if he has the probe for Mustafar, but especially if he has the probe, take the TIE fighters with you. That's two more black dice to protect the Death Star. He could have gotten already an extra TIE fighter or TIE striker from Geo, and you can deploy there. Now, of course, because I am a ROTE Rebel, you want those to be tanks because assault can't blow up tanks. So you want to be leaving tanks behind. But I see that sometimes with Empire players, they'll leave one TIE behind. I just think it's better to leave a trooper behind for deploying purposes and for production purposes. You see the same thing happened in Naboo, where I initially took out those ground units. Uh, just got to build loyalty under your ships and be deploying ground. And now he's starting to make his way over to Ord, and I know at this point he has Alderaan, so he's not even checking it. He's just trying to make it toward Ilum in that side of the map. Could probably bring everything. Yeah, bring both. There's no sense in leaving an assault carrier behind. It's just a weaker fleet that you're dealing with. Easy block here. I'm guessing if he's going for Utapau, that means tag is on R&D. And so that's an easy choice to block. Another thing with him leaving these TIE fighters behind in Mustafar is he's giving me a chance to score seize control. So if I have seize control in hand, I could, move that Nebulon and probably take out those two TIE fighters. I get another rescue, and I draw off the top, I get Raid Factory. I didn't know that was coming because I heisted the Death Star plans. And so, very lucky, very, very good objective to get blind in the level threes. There's a lot of clunkers. And so now I'm thinking I can score that Raid Factory in Geo super easily. I passed. I ended up passing. I don't know if I didn't highlight it, but I ended up passing with behind enemy lines because that Death Star is looking super vulnerable. We'll see how many, and now come out the shield bunkers. Okay, so my thought process in passing was, hey, if he doesn't build shield bunkers, that Death Star is going down. But it looks like he's building two very smartly, and I'd imagine both of those are going down right on the Death Star. Beefing up the base a bit. As soon as I see those shield bunkers, I start thinking to myself, okay, I can cool it a little bit with going for the Death Star. So maybe I'll, instead of throwing another fighter, I'll throw the Corvette in. And I want to start putting some ground outside on Rhodia, but I don't want it to look too suspicious. So let's drop a trooper in Kessel, and we're dropping a trooper in Rhodia, and just, nothing to see here. Yeah, and there goes the Corvette. And right now, there's never going to be any space near Rhodia that is going to be able to take out two Moncals, a Nebulon, and a Corvette. Oh, I switch it up and I go for the X-Wing. Um, and because of the sabotage in Utapau now, he isn't even building a capital ship this turn six. This is the tough part about ROTE is you don't have Tarkin's action card. If you don't get construct factories off the top of the project deck or start digging for your, shipbuilders, you're just in a tight spot. And so I'm pretty confident, even without the Corvette, that he's never going to crack my space, much less discovering the base anytime soon to begin with. I think I dropped the fighter instead of the Corvette because I'm starting to think, wonder why he put that assault carrier in Aldrin. I'm starting to think, okay, he put one shield bunker in Bespin. If I sabo and he doesn't do anything about it, maybe I can just go for that. And there's also the added wrinkle where I have a rescue now. So I can score No Man Left Behind 1, I can score Liberation 2 and Raid Factory 3 and put myself in a position where I just win next turn, no matter what he does. I'm never going to roll for Discredit the Rebellion. He can take off those sabos. There's only 3 up to begin with, and they're not in very vital spots, and he has no carbon. So I think I'm just kind of thinking I can just close out the game right here by freeing Turret and scoring some quick combat objectives with attacking out of the base even. Now, I'm starting to notice that the only ground force he even has remotely close to my base is in Ryloth. And once he moves to Tatooine, I can't use Lando on Tatooine. It's Imperial systems only. And so it's kind of looking like, hey, why don't I just play Lando in Ryloth now? And where does he send those troops? I mean, he could send them to Utapau, and when is he even going to have a ship there? He didn't even, he's going to have to wait 2 turns to even have a ship on the queue. He did run an R&D next turn, so it's possible that he has a project. So I just dropped Lando on Ryloth, knowing that this might even look like Tatooine, because I saw the Tatooine probe earlier, and now, unfortunately for Kecho, this is just a bad spot. He didn't even do anything wrong. It's the combination of the rote setup, and having rote Empire, and it's just, what are you gonna do? So spread out, so thin. He's done just about everything he can. But the crippling blow on Naboo and taking out that ground force, and the Death Star having to cover Bespin and get toward Endor, it's just, these are things that really aren't even in his control. And I think it's right for him to put this in Seleucami. I think he has a decent presence between Alderaan and Megiddo to cover Ilum. I think he goes for Nalhutta. I don't know about that. Seleucami, you could expect those units to go toward Toydaria. You could even consolidate the 2 Star Destroyers in Toydaria and start making your way toward Bothui and then toward Tatooine, where I've kind of just said, hey, I'm in Tatooine by doing Lando in Ryloth. And so I think Seleucami would be the better choice. So looking at his missions, this Ozzel mission here, it could be 3 blue mission on Chirrut. Uh, More likely, I'm thinking it's an interdictor. That's one way to get ships, but where's he going to put it? Uh, the closest he can put it to my base is Sullust. He probably wants to put it with the Death Star in theory, but it's just a little bit too little, too late. And he's again not really leaving enough movement. He needs to. I don't know if he's going to do this many missions, but one movement where he needs to get to Ilum. Now he's put himself in a position where this Star Destroyer needs to go to Nalhutta to pick up these units, and it's just a bit of a mess in general that needs to be recovered with moves. He takes off land Vader, um, maybe deciding the capture isn't worth it. I'm not sure. I'm opening up with a rescue, and I feel confident that Cassian can, unless somebody's on subversion. And here we go. We go to rescue Churret, and he just can't afford it. He can't afford it. Um, those guys need to be on the move. And plus, I don't think he really has good odds to block unless I roll a zero. So he blocks. So um, I failed. Yeah, no need for him to roll. And you know what? I'll take it. I'll take it. It's I'm not scoring that objective now, but I'm also thinking that because he doesn't know Tatooine, because he doesn't know Ilum, I'm probably not going to attack out. This move tells me he has an overseas project. He's probably going to drop that trooper from the queue onto Tatooine and check it that way. And that will be that. He'll know that I'm not in Tatooine. Kind of wondering what to do, wondering what he could be up to. Um, expecting expecting an interdictor to come out, wondering, okay, probably don't want him putting that in Geo. But again, if he does oversee project in Tatooine to get that trooper out, even if he built Alliance in Geo or Naboo, he won't have any ground to put there. He could bring the ground over. So this is what I'm thinking now. I'm thinking, is it worth attacking Tatooine to bring out a speeder? Because if I do that, he can't oversee project by dropping a speeder down there. And I could still do that even if I'm in Tatooine. So I could prevent him from discovering Tatooine by attacking out. I could bring two Moncals and a Nebulon and possibly take out the whole fleet. But as long as I attack out with a speeder and drop the speeder in Tatooine, then he won't be able to check it. I don't do that. It feels not worth it because I won't be scoring an objective and because I can still bluff at Ilum. So now I'm running Dodana. I'm a little bit worried about We Are the Bait. I would like to not lose two speeders. Two speeders very easily overwhelmed by a planetary, uh, possibly overwhelmed even just by an ATST and a tank. Um, so hedging for We Are the Bait, and there comes We Are the Bait. Um, I want to use Luke to block whatever Vader's doing, because it could be planetary. And so I think I send Leia here. Um, that's a little bit, I think, a misplay by me. Um, I because I'm playing against um, ROTE Empire, and I would like to be able to block a deploy. And he flashes the deploy. So he oversees, checks Tatooine, and now he's going to be able to deploy in Ilum. And as soon as he deploys in Ilum, he will know I am not there, and I am in fact Rhodia, because I know the six remaining probes, and the only one that he doesn't have covered in there is Rhodia. And so I think it could have been better possibly to block the We Are the Bait either with Luke or with nobody. I mean, he's played so many missions, and he only has five left in his hand. It's very unlikely that he has planetary. Um, I guess it's unequally likely that he has uh, another deploy, but I don't know. Maybe I didn't even need to block rear of the base. I just didn't want to lose two speeders because right now with four speeders, he's never cracking my base. Gonna sabotage here in Bespin. Um, trying to. My plan here is if I sabotage Bespin, I can build alliance in Sullust, and when he moves the Death Star away from the sabotage to Sullust, I can behind enemy lines there, or plan the assault there, um, and behind enemy lines rather, and get the man. He has an exploit. So yeah, he had a lot of good interrogation missions, but the odds are not good for him. And that's kind of, as Empire, something to think about is sometimes you have good missions. Oh, barely blocked. Sometimes you have good missions, but if I'm stacking, if I have this much blue, between Cassian and Dodonna and Jedi Luke, and that many fists between Chirrut being captured and Luke back in the pool, it's not worth it to run these missions knowing they're probably going to fail. He could be, building alliance in Geo. He could be getting moving from Seleucami to Toydaria, getting closer to where my base might be. He could be covering Ord so that I can't deploy in Ord. And I mean, he still doesn't know if I'm in Ilum. He could, when he deploys in Ilum, if I'm there and I kill the Emperor and then still have Ord free to deploy in, that's just really bad for him. I can get two more Corvettes in the base. I can get a Corvette and a speeder in the base via Ord. And so seeing that I have these leaders in pool to give me good odds to block these missions, they're just not worth doing. Actions, especially late in the game, when the Empire is scrambling a little bit and trying to get units toward where my base might be, you just can't waste any actions. So now I know that he knows I'm in Rhodia, and he might be thinking, holy cow, like, I'm going to build this interdictor. Where am I even going to put it? Um, and that's a good question. Uh, yeah, I don't know what the delay is. Just you can just drop the interdictor. Now we're on turn 7. I got a rapid coming up. I actually did this rapid. Oh, he was waiting for me to say it wasn't my base. Okay, that's my bad. Um, I queued up this rapid knowing that I wasn't going to look at probes. I was going to take these units back from Hoth. Um, he only had two leaders back to move. And I did not think one of those moves was going to be to Hoth when he already knew I wasn't in Hoth. So I felt pretty confident I was going to be able to get those units back to the base. And um, oof, 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 looking pretty scary. And I infiltrated into major victory. So my objectives have been really good. My level ones were potentially bad. I mean, if he has propaganda, if I don't get such a good lock on the Hut region, but I mean, crippling blow, raid factory, major victory, liberation. These are just stellar objectives. It's tough. Tough when you're playing a rote rebel player who is really trying to play fast. So now I'm thinking one, two, three objectives. I'm going to be able to get that. I'm going to be able to get liberation. I'm going to be able to get major victory. And now I don't know what he does. I don't know what he does. He could have moved the Star Destroyer to Nalhutta this turn and didn't need to take it to Tatooine. He was just trying to reveal my base. Doesn't matter, he wasn't going to win it just against two Moncals and Nebulon with, an extra Star Destroyer. And so now he's kind of in a position where he might want to Ozzel Rhodia to reveal it or something. Maybe Ozzel Bothwy, but I honestly don't know what he does. I'm thinking to myself, I have planned the assault. I'm going to score that in Geo because he ended up dropping the interdictor in Sullust. So the Death Star looks like it's not going to go down because he can just, if I take out the shield bunker, he can just move it to. Maybe I should have taken out the shield bunker last turn. That might have been a safer bet, but I don't know. I guess I guess my play here is safer, even though there's a couple more moving parts. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna score major victory in Tatooine. I'm gonna attack out and get Tatooine, leave just enough behind to plan the assault in Geo in order to score Raid Factory, and then I have the behind enemy lines to go to Mon Cal and get Liberation. And that's gonna be 1, 2, 3, and at the end of the turn, that's game. Don't need to Rogue Squadron anything. Don't need to worry about moving the base. I feel pretty confident that I'm able to, with these stellar objectives, just close the game out this turn. And uh, there's been one exploit weakness. There's been retrieve the plans. There's not really much he can do to mess with me. Um, Even if he Ozzled my base right now, I probably wouldn't even send a leader um, because I would, yeah, my base is just overpowered. He holds off on Ozzel, and now I can consolidate these troops from Bothawui and attack out of the base. And he already used Piet for the little ground battle. I'm bringing this speeder because I don't know if I'm going to stay. I'm just trying to take out 3 health. And if he has track them, if the battle's kind of not going great, if he has track them or whatever happens, I want to be able to kill this trooper so that he can't reveal the base. Just keeping it hidden as long as possible, just to play it safe. And because he sends Piet, I want to make sure that I'm rolling second. He doesn't play Overwhelming Presence, which he got back with Tag. He should probably play Overwhelming Presence here, knowing that I'm either trying to get major victory, or that's all it could be. I've used all of my level ones. But yeah, to try to protect his Star Destroyer, and then he could retreat to Geo if that trooper survives, or retreat to Geo and build loyalty there. Any of those would be good plays. And I have no fighters, so the black hits sadly don't work. And looks like I'll be able to take out at least a Star Destroyer. So yeah, if he had played Overwhelming Presence, I would still get major victory, but at least the Star Destroyer would be alive. Um, and Star Destroyer is better than an assault carrier and a fighter. Cancel. And yeah, this is uh, this is part of too something that's difficult. I played a game versus Wombat the other day where we did rote setup, and his objectives were phenomenal. There was an early display of power. I spent a lot of effort to make sure he didn't get Star Destroyers, and he had Tarkin's action card. He got an address delay. he started with loyalty, I believe, in Corellia and Mustafar, and then he can get Dagobah. And so if he runs an R&D turn one and a rule by fear, there's almost nothing I can do to stop him from getting two Star Destroyers and two assault carriers and uh, turn one. And from that position, if he's getting loyalties and I think he got an early planetary to stop me from building in Kecho, which is usually a tough spot to get to on rote setup. He got a planetary, I think, turn two or turn three. Its rote setup can be very swingy, where if the Empire gets really good missions, it's super overpowered because you have such a strong presence on the blue squared systems early. And Moncal is far and away inferior to Utapau for the Rebels turn one, and you start with a much weaker Space Force. And so without Utapau, with Empire getting Utapau and Moncal, and if they have a couple of missions, get a couple of good probes, it's lights out. And that's why I don't like rote setup. I understand that it can help the Empire in certain situations, but you're just as likely turn one, I think, to get a trade negotiations, keep them in mind, get propaganda, something to deal with either Utapau or Moncal in a base setup, and you're not putting a position where the game is just not fun for one person or the other. Um, because Kecho's in a situation where it's no fault of his own. It's just the reality of you have this Death Star under construction sitting in Dagobah, and it's so vulnerable, you just have to put a ton of force there. And then between Dagobah, where do your other two Star Destroyers go? Coruscant and Mandalore, that's the best place for them. And now all of a sudden, how do you get to Cato? How do you get to Moncal and Ord? How do you get to Bothawi? It's just an unenviable position. But it's an argument regardless for the base deck because it can help you recover from those really bad spots. Um, just a little insult to injury. Saw's gonna free up Moncal and rolls blanks. Yeah, that's that's the plant explosive story for Road Deck is just expect blanks on those vital missions. Um, One of the great things about hit and run is if it's unopposed, it succeeds by 2 health worth of units. And now here is the behind enemy lines to get the automatic score on liberation. It's just the easiest place to do it without sacrificing the speeder. And because he has no damage cards left. So that's GG. That's the game. And see you guys in the next one.